Today's episode is brought to you by Bush's Fresh Food Market. Calling all foodies, Bush's is hiring. Are you passionate about food, looking for growth, development, and excellent wages? Come grow with Bush's and apply online at bushes.com/join our team. That's Bush's, BUSCHS.com/join our team.
From the Detroit Free Press, I'm Emma Stein with today's Free Press Voice Briefing. It's Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. Ethan Crumbley pled guilty to committing the Oxford school shooting. He faces up to life in prison for charges including first-degree murder and terrorism causing death. Before the shooting, Crumbley had vowed in his journal to carry out the state's biggest school shooting. The courtroom was filled with victims' families during the Monday admission of guilt. He also dropped a bombshell during his confession when he said the gun he used was easily accessible and not locked away. His parents, who are facing involuntary manslaughter charges in their own case, have claimed the gun was securely stored. The lawyer for the victim's family said, quote, "It was cold-blooded what he did. While he may have been dealt a bad set of cards with the parents, it's still a choice that he made to do the harm and bring the tragedy to Oxford." A new National Assessment of Educational Progress report shows that Michigan students slid in both reading and math. The data, which follows national trends, illustrates a widening academic gap between students from low-income homes and those from higher-income homes. Critics noted that students are far more than their test scores, and the scores actually represent the systems that are serving them. This is the first assessment since the pandemic, and advocates are urging policymakers to take action and invest in early childhood education.
I'm Violet Economova, an investigative reporter at the Free Press. Summer in Detroit was marred by a series of deadly shootings of kids. There was a 14-year-old boy shot and killed in front of his house in broad daylight over a stolen phone. A 10-year-old boy police say got a hold of a gun while his mom was out and killed his 8-year-old sister. Detroit has long grappled with youth gun violence. It's one of the most violent cities in the country, but the grim headlines seem to be growing more frequent. So we dug into the data, and indeed, a pandemic-era rise in shootings has hit Detroit kids especially hard. 43 juveniles were shot and killed in Detroit from 2020 through mid-September, a 140% rise from the 3 years before the pandemic. That increase far outpaces a pandemic-era rise in killings of all ages. Detroit's homicide rate across those periods jumped just 6%. The culprits are said to include a proliferation of guns, an increased willingness to use them to settle basic disputes, and lingering socioeconomic fallout from the pandemic. In already disinvested urban centers like Detroit, one leading gun violence prevention expert says they've combined for a toxic brew.
I'm Andrew Hammond for the Free Press Sports Department. Since 1970, there have been 4 teams that started 1-5 and still made the playoffs. If history tells us anything, the 2022 Detroit Lions won't be one of them. Lions beat writer Dave Burkett caught up with a few fans on a flight from Dallas back to Detroit, and obviously frustration is starting to boil over. "I'm tired of being a Lions fan. I ain't gonna lie," one fan said, adding, "This S gets ridiculous." If the season ended today, the Lions would have the number 1 pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. One fan clearly has already started looking towards the draft, saying they need a quarterback loud enough for the plane to hear. For the Lions, their next opportunity to pick up a win is this Sunday against the Miami Dolphins at home inside of Ford Field.
For more stories from the Detroit Free Press, be sure to check out freep.com. That's FREEP.com. I'll see you tomorrow.